Howdy, folks, and welcome to your storm chasing forecast show for Wednesday, August 19th. I am Gabriel Harber, joined once again here by Coach Cameron Nixon. What's going on, man?
Not much. Ready to dive into another marginal day.
Another marginal day. Actually, my friend, that looks like a slight
Ah,
risk day.
it,
Yeah,
it,
what?
it does look like a slight risk day, so I'll call it a slight
I
day.
like that. We're already starting off with some controversy from the top, so this is good viewing. All right, Cameron, go ahead and take us through high level, starting with the categorical. What are we in store for today?
Yeah, we got a small 2% from Springfield to Duca, Kentucky, and a more wind-driven slight risk over that area with kind of marginal hail risk over most of this area here. And what I haven't looked at is really fully dissected the potential ceiling for hail out in the high plains. As we've seen, it has been fairly high recently, so maybe we can pick out some more potential high ceiling areas for hail. So looking at our 500 millibar map, we do have a sight for sore eyes still, as that jet has really sagged south, bringing with it some supercell shear across much of kind of the central plains and the heartland here. It is a little bit difficult, though, to find potential short waves within this. And one thing that I don't really, if we're just going exactly based on the slight risk 2% area as it stands, so it almost looks like we're in the wake of a previous kind of jet or subtle shortwave here throughout most of the day today. But you see, we still have kind of this reloading of the jet behind it, so it is possible that does still help fire some convection along this area. Otherwise, we still have some very strong shear here across most of the high plains.
Excellent top level analysis, Cameron. And I want to share something very exciting with everybody who's watching right now. I actually spoke with John Bangoff, one of the founders of the WeatherFront app today, and he said that for Android users, since they just dropped the Android 100% public access now, you actually get 50% off your first month. So you'll get your 7-day free trial, then you'll get 50% off your first month if you choose to subscribe. So that is a whole lot of discounted goodness for access to the app that you're looking at right now in front of you. Cameron's got the slides on the left hand side. He's able to actually put together an
Real
entire
nice.
presentation. Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
cool. And when you sign up on mobile, you get access to the browser app. There's also a desktop app. So, link in the description, folks. Make sure you check that out. And Cameron, if you want to take us down deeper into the atmosphere, let's continue with the analysis.
Let's do it. Let's actually just go straight down to the surface, check out how our surface pattern is progressing to evolve. You can see that I am sweltering yet again, while most of the rest of the country rejoices in these cooler temperatures. Really kind of ugly surface pattern here. I hate to say that, at least modeled by the RAP. Very ugly surface pattern. Not much in the way of kind of low pressure over this area, and if anything, over the high plains, you actually have this more northerly flow, almost northwesterly flow. So, not something you really tend to see with severe weather events up here, but we'll definitely still take a closer look at some of the environments up there just to make sure we're not missing anything. Dew wise, we have a lot of our dew points kind of sagging south from yesterday, bringing with them kind of a larger kind of maximum in moisture here in southern Missouri, which is not exactly surprising where this 2% is issued. So if we pluck some soundings, this isn't again exactly surprising given what we've looked at. Some moderately strong flow here, making for nicely curved and a little bit elongated hodographs, and lots of moisture here near the ground. Also, some fairly dry air aloft too, so maybe some potentially good structure with any supercells that do manage to form here. What I'm not liking is this very dry air here aloft in terms of potentially initiating storms when we have this diffuse of a surface pattern. But if we were to get a little bit stronger frontal forcing kind of along this, I don't know if you'd call this cold front at whatever this point is, some kind of a moist boundary sagging south, we still might get some convection initiation off that. Further west, maybe we head into eastern Colorado with this. It looks like RAP has a better moisture tongue here. We do see some fairly good thermal profiles, but again, a little bit hostile for CI. We'll have to see if there are any other sources of forcing there. Further up the plains, we could search into western Nebraska. and pretty lower dew points here. And so you're probably going to be dealing with more high base storms given this kind of profile here with weaker cape. And once again, I wish we had the NAM here, but we'll throw on the NAM nest here and just see if this is generally saying the same thing as a wrap. And by most measures, it is. We could see some little bits of convection contamination here with initiating storms. Highest dew points generally to the south in the high plains, maybe even the Dalhart area. That really doesn't look too bad, interestingly. So this is a very wide area for very low probability and low coverage of storms, whereas this area out here near Missouri is probably more, I guess, certain with respect to if storms actually fire here, which is good, or I guess interesting for us as chasers of the environment, especially the shear profile looks to be even better here. Let's look at 3 Cape just to see if we're missing anything with regards to kind of where tornadic environments might actually be. You see a sizable amount of 3 Cape kind of especially nosing into Illinois. These are kind of more of the profiles that I like to see, especially for tornadoes. Lots of low-level moisture here and low-level Cape in excess of 150 here in this case, and still fairly strong shear. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the low-level Capes removed from the kind of higher terrain here where storms are most likely to initiate. If we pluck a couple soundings around Omaha and we can cherry pick, this definitely doesn't look too bad for storms. Not really digging these Hodographs though. These look all kind of post-frontal with very weak low-level streamwise vorticity. So these will probably just be a few mini supercells up this way if they do form.
Before we move forward, check out our channel membership here. There's a join button down below. It's only $3 per month. You get some awesome perks, so I'd love it if you guys would take a look at it, see if you like it. All right, so question for you, Cameron.
Yes, sir.
I have it written down here. Subsidence, evil. You talked about it earlier, saying that it looked like that shortwave trough that might even be moving through before the CI time occurs. What can storm chasers do to actually identify subsidence when it's occurring out in the field? And then what should they do as a result of that? Should you try to go get ahead of the shortwave trough that's maybe creating that subsidence? Should you maybe fall back a little bit? How do you deal with that when it's occurring?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, as a chaser, these things move so fast and they're so difficult to time with models that it's not really something that should make you go forward or back or west or east as much as it does just get your hopes up or let them down because these tend to influence how a mesoscale setup kind of evolves and if it works or not, or if storms initiate or not. One thing I was noticing is if you go behind this shortwave here, one thing that you can, oh, this is not, I guess you can see it here. One thing that you can see in soundings is the sinking motion here on this omega plot. And this is generally indicative of behind that shortwave. And again, subsiding air is sinking air. And another thing that I noticed is later on, and maybe I'll cherry pick a good sounding this time. Yeah, you tend to get much drier air aloft behind that subsiding air because as air sinks, it warms and it dries. So this profile is the result of that previous profile warming and drying over time. And so this is one reason why it's very hard to get convection at all in the kind of subsiding rearward region of these shortwaves here.
One of the coolest things that I have learned in the time that you and I have been friends and recording various types of media together is just seeing how your brain works when it comes to watching the environment evolve from one sounding to the next. Because
Yes.
it's such a different way of seeing things to be able to look at the squiggly lines and visualize what's actually going on in the atmosphere. So I would encourage everybody, if you haven't done it before, really try to take a peek at what soundings look like in the morning, and then if there's a special sounding in the afternoon, and then later in the day, because it really does give you an entirely different picture of how the atmosphere evolves when you use those as a basis for visualizing what's happening.
Yes, echo that. And I would also highly recommend watching Rich Thompson's tornado forecasting workshop. If you have not already, it's a series on YouTube. And he goes very in depth as to how soundings can change over time before a tornado event. And it is very possible to use nothing but just this to guesstimate what your sounding is going to look like in the future. It's really cool.
You know what else is really cool? Cam versus Cams. Let's
Oh
get this show on the
no.
road.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see how grim this is. So let's take a look at the HRRR, see what the HRRR says. The main reason is I want to go back and acknowledge the fact that I was very tiptoeing around what the convective mode for storms was going to be in this main slight risk area. And that is because I honestly don't really know. I think a lot of it depends on convection evolution of this morning's kind of MCS as it cooks and maybe any outflow boundaries as it form. This outcome is very uncertain at this time. The HRRR does have later stuff rolling in through kind of the wake of this early MCS. It really doesn't fire anything over most of this slight risk area throughout later on in the day. But we still just get these rounds of kind of these elevated storms. This almost looks like it's a potential damaging wind swath here. So we could pluck some soundings out ahead of this thing. Not really a chase target, in my opinion, but we do have some fairly strong shear and a fairly substantial cape here. So would not be surprised if we get a couple rounds of damaging wind out here. And then maybe, just maybe, some signal for brief supercells here. Again, unsurprising in the southern high plains, given where we had most of that moisture here before storms congealed into a wind producing kind of complex here. We could take a look at the Rufus, see if it's any different. Already see one glaring difference here. Looks to be this supercell pops up into Kansas. So maybe we have a remnant outflow boundary up there or front that just sharpens just enough to pop storms there. Very similar idea for the southern high plains and even the Midwest. Kind of has that next bow echo behind it, and really not too much here in this risk area until way later overnight. We'll look at the NAM too for, again, more of an extreme outlier. And interesting, more signal for storms well up north here, perhaps on kind of a more defined cold front, kind of like the RFS showed. Kind of struggles to maintain most of these storms, but again, pop storms very late at night in eastern Missouri into southern Illinois, with very grim prospects for supercell watching up in the high plains here.
Remember to check out those links in the description below, and then watch another video.